All rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
Here.
Councilman Cullen.
Here.
Councilwoman Eckhart. Here. Councilwoman Hudak. Absent. Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notation of the exits in the front and the rear and electronic device, please put it on vibrate or shut it off. Make a motion to come out of the executive session. No action was taken.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. I make a motion to continue the public hearing for the proposed local law to implement the recommendation to change the comprehensive plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will take public comment first, and from public comment, the board will discuss all the changes proposed, because we would like to close the public hearing this evening. I think we've had it open for maybe 4, maybe 5 meetings, plus what we've done in the past summer and everything, so it looks like it's pretty much getting ready to wrap. We're not voting on it this evening, but I need to get a kind of a straw poll from the public, since once we close the public hearing, if we add anything additional to it, okay, we can't make a substantial change to it.
Right.
Okay?
And we can have at least a 10-day period for comments after tonight. Right? Written comment?
Maybe.
Okay. Just
Okay.
a suggestion.
Ashley, would you like to come up and identify basically the changes that have been, the planning board made recommendations, the board discussed certain things. They made a few changes. I think the board, we want to discuss some of those changes. And again, I'll get a feel for the 4 members here. And if I feel that I have 3, and if not, then I'm sure what we're going to do with the one that's a tie, so to speak.
Okay.
So let's go through each of the items and get a feel for the board of what those recommendations will be. And what we're looking at basically is what was sent from the planning board dated April 27, 2015. Item number 1, no restrictions on new versus used vehicle dealerships. That's what you're going to deal with, right?
Yes, so the draft that you have before you this evening, and that was included in the agenda packet on the website, includes all of the recommendations from the planning board. So if there's anything that you disagree with, that would then need to come out.
Ashley?
Yes.
I have a question, because I was at that meeting, and they had decided at that meeting that it was going to be 15% for outside storage, and it seems to have been altered on the,
No, it was
or is
25 and one was reduced down to 15, only one, not all.
only one?
Yes.
Right, it was.
Which one?
It was reduce the general business and light manufacturing outside storage percentage to 15% from 25% in the original draft of the local law.
Okay.
And so that edit is reflected on page 4 of this revised draft.
And the original remains for everything other than that at 25%.
It was variable. For general businesses, it was at
Okay.
25%.
Okay, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So-
Actually,
No.
if you want to take the planning board's recommendation, general business should have been dropped to 15% as well.
Okay.
Landscape, nursery, and commercial greenhouses was at 65%, and off-site storage for new vehicles for an automobile dealership was at 50%.
Right.
So does the board agree with the 15%, or would you like to go back to the 25%?
I would like to go back to 25, but I don't have to go with what the will of the board.
I'm, of course, at 15.
For general business?
For general
And light
business and light manufacturing. So these are businesses that would typically have a warehouse on their property.
I'm okay
And that
with
was why the planning board thought that 15% was more appropriate than 25.
Well, again, having been in business, and especially not just the Route 6 corridor, but anywhere in the town of Southeast, we have warehouses. You have, I use a major utility comes in, a moving company comes in, they have a warehouse. The warehouse is not to park their trucks, but to park, storage equipment, your goods from your home that you're moving and things of that nature. So I'd bring it back to 25% personally. I think I heard a second.
Yeah, I'll go for 25.
Do I get a third?
Going
I'm on the
once,
fence with that
going
one.
twice.
I was at that planning board meeting. I think the planning board vetted the project very well.
and all that. And I know we were at 25%, and I thought the compromise was gonna be 15%.
Well, here's what I'm gonna ask someone to do to see, just, again, we can go down, but we can't go up. So let's put it at 25, and the night we vote on it, you can reduce it down to 15, right, Will? So you can't increase, but you can decrease. You can't be more than less.
More restricted.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll leave it at 25, and that evening we'll actually take the vote on that particular one in particular.
Okay.
Okay? That sounds good. Okay, that takes care of that one.
So the second recommendation was no steel ramps for car displays, and that was added to the special permit conditions for a car dealership.
After what I've seen take place over in the town of Carmel and the entranceway to it, I fully agree.
Okay,
Yes.
That's
the
fine.
board's unanimous on that. Clarify that parapets are included in the vertical elements permitted to be taller. So those are sort of the decorative elements that might be on the top of a building to hide rooftop mechanicals or to add a cupola or something that would make the building more attractive. So that could be a little bit taller than the maximum height.
I'm fine with
I'm fine with that as well.
Clarify the definition of motor vehicle service station in relation to motor vehicle dealership. The way it was originally worded, it made it sound like you could have a repair shop, but it was actually not allowed in the dealership. And so that definition was amended to be more clear that you are allowed to have a repair shop associated with your motor vehicle dealership for your typical maintenance and repairs that you would have at a dealership. But you cannot operate your own towing business from that dealership. You could be towed to the site, but not.
Let's use a car dealership, which we're doing, okay? Again, I used to work at a car dealership when I was a kid. Why, so we're saying that a car dealership cannot have a tow truck to go, or a flatbed to go pick up a customer's car and bring it back. They have to use an outside vendor. Does that make sense?
I think that's
think that's
almost,
pretty
that's
typical.
what they do now. I
Yeah,
don't think any.
I've
car
never seen
dealerships-
any.
No, they never have their
Yeah,
own tow
even-
trucks. I don't think
I
that's
do
a
know
problem.
some that do though. So that's what we do?
Well, that gets into, storing the trucks outside and all
Right.
that again. That's why I think that was one good reason to avoid that.
Okay, so if the dealership comes in, there's no way they can tow a vehicle back themselves. They have to hire an outside vendor. That's what we're doing.
I think it's a non-issue.
Right,
I really think
Yeah.
that's the way it works
Right.
anywhere.
Typically, if you break down somewhere, you get,
Like
you could call
AAA
AAA and
or-
they'll take you to wherever you say you want to go, either the closest repair
Right.
shop or the closest dealership.
Yeah, I don't know any dealerships that have
Yeah.
their own tow service.
Okay, what's the next one?
The next one was actually we already discussed the reducing the outside storage percentage. And then the last one was enhancing buffer and screening requirements for commercial uses adjacent to residential neighborhoods.
Okay, that's something we have to discuss. We have up on North Brewster Road now, you know that area? Someone has taken over one of the former
Okay.
garages type thing. And it's really more of a residential neighborhood than it is a commercial neighborhood, and it does pose a problem in certain areas of town. Now, I know Ms. Venezia is not here as yet, and I don't believe she's coming this evening, but one of her concerns was to, address the side yard, front yard, rear yard setbacks. But with something that's a pre-existing use, it's kind of difficult to do that. So with the newer ones, I don't have a problem with a larger restriction if they have the property to do it, so to speak. But people also have to realize if they buy a residential lot or buy a house next to a commercial lot, a commercial business is going to go in there. So you kind of have to do your homework. And so how do we come up with a number for that?
So I actually, I went through the code based on that comment, and there already are a number of provisions within certain special permit criteria for certain types of uses, as well as in the use table itself that requires larger parking setbacks and other buffers when you are adjacent to a residential district. So, and in some cases, especially if you're in a neighborhood business area where you may have a little bit of residential close to a commercial business, you actually want them to be fairly close together. You wouldn't necessarily want that larger gap. So,
Nor could they provide it in most cases.
right, because of the lot sizes. So I think that what the town has on the books right now really addresses that issue as is.
It's also arguable that someone who, comes in commercial, to be commercial knows what they're getting into as well, just like the neighbor who buys near it. So, I mean, it
Yes.
works, that knife cuts both ways.
Yes, it does.
As you know, right on the village and southeast border, not to mention any particular one, there was a big concern about, the residents, how to, protect their rights as well as the property owners' rights, and it got to be a mess for quite a long time. So, you think that's addressed with the new code?
I think it's
As best we
addressed,
can? There's no perfection to this. There's no way you're gonna satisfy anybody on this.
I think between the buffers that are proposed in the new special permit regulations, as well as the buffers that already exist in the code as it stands today, I think that issue is addressed.
Okay.
And also, someone will always have the right to go to get a variance.
Yes, yes.
Now, what we've added at my suggestion, as you know, is we originally had OP1, OP2, OP3, and we suggested at that time to reduce just down to 2 because they were so similar.
Yes.
However, since that time, someone has come in and made an application to address OP2 zones in the town of Southeast, and there was no OP2 zone anymore. It was OP and, what's the other one?
OPMU, which was basically identical to OP3, but
Okay.
you wouldn't want to jump.
But we only
through.
had 2, and the applicant now is asking for OP2, and what I suggested is we go back to the 1, 2, 3 status, because that applicant then can stay within the OP2 zone, so to speak, and then you don't have the 3 of them. So that's been reverted back. I like what we did, but after that application came in, that was not a good thing to do. So we're gonna have OP1, 2, and 3. Everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Okay?
And then, so that's reflected in the table.
Right.
But because of the other changes that had been made to the code, I did make some changes to the uses that would be allowed in OP1 versus OP2 based on where those uses are located in the town. So those were split up a little bit
Right.
as opposed to what, the larger group that was allowed just in OP.
This is the same one you gave me that night
This
at
is,
the
this
planning
is
board
in,
meeting, or another one?
no, this is, was emailed out last week. So it's the one that has a draft, May
They're all
28th.
starting to.
Yeah. So in this version, under OP1, permitted principal uses would be craft workshop, general business, office, personal services, professional service, and research labs. Accessory uses would be outside storage, private utilities, retail, and warehouse. And special permit uses would be hotel, motel, conference facility, kennels and animal hospitals, public utilities, wood mill. And conditional uses would be light manufacturing, nursery, recreation, restaurant, telecommunications, and warehouses. In OP2, it would be bed and breakfast / country inn, equestrian center, farm use, general business, office, personal services, professional services, theater, performing arts. Outside storage would be a permitted accessory use along with private utilities, retail, and warehouse. Special permit uses would be hotel, motel, conference facility, kennels and animal hospitals, public utilities, and senior housing. And conditional uses would be light manufacturing, nursery, recreation, research lab, restaurant, telecommunications towers, and warehouse. So there's some slight differences between the uses that would be in OP1 and OP2, based on where they are located within the town.
Any comment? Is that the bulk of it?
That was the bulk of it. The setbacks and all of the dimensional regulations, I put them back as they stand in the code today. Then the other major change since the last meeting is I had a call with the building inspector a couple weeks ago about whether or not a new business could go into one of the retail plazas that was a pizza restaurant and whether that would be considered fast food or not. And reading the code, we thought that it would be fast food, so there's actually no places in town that allow new fast food. But it got us talking about how there's also no place that could allow something like a Panera Bread or a Chipotle or something that's really not quite fast food, sort of in between fast food and a restaurant.
Now, let me ask you a question. With the definition of fast food, if a business has a drive-in, is that considered fast food?
That's one of the factors to classify it as fast food, yes.
Because Panera Bread has drive-in windows. So would they be prohibited from having one?
Under this definition, they would be prohibited from having a drive-in,
They could, so they could have a restaurant, but they could not have a drive-in?
yes.
Now, could they come to the town and ask for a special permit?
That would be probably a variance, or to get
A
the
use,
drive-in.
would that be a use variance? I just don't want to write something into the code, have someone come back in later on and say, you know, we need this drive-in to do our business.
Yeah.
But we have drive-ins already with Dunkin'
Right.
Donuts, so I'm really confused.
I'm
Because
not
the
in
way
favor
that
of it.
Dunkin' Donuts is, it's specifically,
Dunkin' Donuts
They
is
serve
fast
food.
food, that's fast.
It's
I mean,
fast food.
You walk in, you walk out.
but
Something like Panera Bread,
it's
you
actually
can eat
not
at dinner.
fast food based on the definition that's in the code. That's why Dunkin' Donuts and Subway have been allowed to go
Yeah, I
forward,
was gonna
because
bring up Subway.
it specifically exempts coffee shops, delicatessens, and bakeries from the
So
definition.
Panera can't just be considered a delicatessen?
Or bakery.
No, it's not
Why not?
deli. Are we
Why
getting
not?
residuals from these individuals too by announcement?
Yeah. No, but really, I mean, I think we're just getting into so much hair splitting on this. I understand fast food or casual, but you know, if it's okay for, I mean, Panera Breads to me is no different, I mean, it's a step up, I suppose, from Subway, right? Now I'll be sued, right?
Yeah.
But, it just gets into a lot of hair splitting, and I
Chipotle
don't know
is
that
a
that's
very nice-
necessarily a good thing.
So,
Chick-fil-A, I mean,
Chipotle is very nice. Chick-fil-A, I would consider Chick-fil-A
Yeah,
fast food.
I think
But it's still very
Panera
nice.
might be able to fall under the delicatessen category that we
Right.
have here, but something like Chipotle would not. They would definitely fall within the definition of fast food.
And I see that as the opposite. But,
yeah,
I mean, like they said, it's kind of like a step up to me, but
Right, so that was
Unlike
that was
Taco
the
Bell,
concern,
let's
is
say, or
if
something.
one of these businesses did approach the town, and they haven't, they have not,
but they may.
they may.
and none of them have dollar menus that you mentioned either, so, no.
So this was just something we
so
thought
what's
would
the
be
work?
good to bring up now.
How do we word
Well,
that?
yeah, I mean, I don't want to prevent a
Yeah, neither do I.
Chipotle or a Chick-fil-A from coming to Southeast if it's an appropriate place.
So
Well, then
this
you'll be
is-
for fast casual.
So what we've done, or what I did, is I added, I've made some slight changes to the definition of restaurant. There's a
Please,
definition-
please, in the audience, we're conducting a meeting. If you want to talk, just go outside that door, please. Go ahead.
There's been a slight change to the definition of restaurant/fast food, and then there's a new definition called restaurant fast casual, which is a restaurant serving food for casual dining or takeout where food is primarily prepared to order. The food may be selected from a standardized menu visible from behind the counter where the order is placed, and no drive-through is provided. Although table service may not be provided, the restaurant provides a comfortable dining atmosphere with tables for patrons. Food is delivered on non-disposable plates, baskets, or similar serviceware.
Now, the non-disposable plates.
Right, so Panera will use non-disposable plates.
Well,
in
what if
some
they
of their-
switch and start using plates that aren't disposable?
And who gets to define comfortable?
So there is
There
a
are a lot of
definition
adjectives in
in
here.
the, there are a lot of adjectives. It is hard to define the difference between the two.
Yes, it is hard. It really is in the eye or the mouth of the beholder, I think.
And the definition for restaurant fast food does have a numerical part of this where it says the floor area available for dining is less than half the gross floor area, or a major portion of the sales is to the public is at a drive-through, drive-in, or stand-up type counter. So that's at least a little bit more of a solid number you could point to.
Wouldn't it be easiest just to say no wait staff?
Did you say wait?
Wait staff.
No waiters.
No wait,
You know,
wait staff, no wait, no, that's what they all have in common, right? You have to, go to the front and give your order. No one comes and takes your order, no one clears your
Right,
dishes. no
right.
one-
You order at a counter.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that seems to be what we're talking about, not comfort or,
But
all
again,
that.
do we have to get into the nitty-gritty?
Well, that, I'm saying to
Right, yeah.
eliminate all
I'm
this
just saying,
stuff.
right, yeah, do we need to, paper plates, disposable plates,
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to start getting into
Well, then
Okay.
that's why I'm saying,
So
maybe you
it-
want it just where there isn't wait staff. I don't know.
I mean, is there?
So what's
a
the thoughts, what are the thoughts behind why they're not qualified now? They don't meet the
So
definition of
right
fast
now,
food.
right now, there's,
They are.
fast food is not a permitted use in any of the zoning districts. So the other way to handle this would be to add fast food as a permitted use in some of the zoning districts.
Oh, boy.
But that's, based on the feedback, I'm not sure that's what the town wants either. So,
I'm hungry. I don't, what are you gonna, how do we do it?
and then you wouldn't need to add any new definitions.
So what do we do not to add the new definition?
So if you don't add the new
Then we have to add
definition,
fast food. I
you-
mean, you have to put it into zones.
you'd have to put fast food into zones. You already
Yeah.
have the definition of fast foods, but you'd have to put it into certain zones. So you could put it into like HC1, where you have the larger shopping centers, and SR22, where you already have some fast food. Just limit it to those two zones.
Where's our fast food in SR20? Wait, SR22 you said?
SR22,
Not
you've got-
SR6?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the Red
Okay,
Rooster and
yeah.
McDonald's and Burger King.
Okay. I thought you said, when you said it, I thought it was 6. Not, there's nothing on 6. I'd go that way. Look, you're a gourmet cook. The rest of us, cook for ourselves.
No, I think that's a cleaner way to do it, but I really think that opens, I really think people will want to comment and have a lot of feedback on that. I don't see
Okay.
how we do that and close the meeting tonight, that's for sure.
Okay,
I'd
so
be-
maybe this is something
Because
that
we're
we could
still
deal with
voting
at
on
a
it, we're
later
still gonna have a
date.
public hearing. I mean, we
Well,
have.
that's
approval.
not, what I'm saying is then we don't close the public hearing
Oh,
tonight.
no, we're closing the public hearing.
Well, then that's a major,
Then maybe this is something we should take out of this revision, and it could be dealt with at a later date.
Like, let's leave at least the fast casual then. It's better to have that in there. And then later on, if we have to revisit whether or not, we want to decide on zoning on certain parcels.
well, zones, not really parcels, but.
So the fast casual,
So we leave it the way it is, and we can take it out.
Well, no,
When
we'd
we
have to
actually vote on
include
it.
the fast casual.
No,
because,
I'm
right,
saying, but
yeah.
if,
so
that-
include it now and then take
leave
it out when you
it
actually
in, and
vote.
then if we have to, take it out, but we couldn't change. So we're taking Ashley's suggestion to heart, okay? And we'll leave what we have in there now. We can take it out and then deal with it at a later time.
Okay, so you're gonna consider taking it out when you actually vote on the law?
Well, yeah, we
So
can
leave
take it
in
out
now
if
in
we,
the draft.
I mean, fast,
Well, we may not have to take it out.
yeah, that's true. And that's why if you leave it, let's leave it
Right.
the way it's being suggested.
Okay,
Okay? Because that's the max, and then the minimum can be reduced,
okay.
okay?
And so just to be clear, the name, where this is suggested to be added as a use, it's proposed in SR6 as a conditional use, HC as a permitted principal use, and SR22 as a conditional use.
I can live with that. Leave it that way then, gentlemen, ladies?
Yeah.
I'm less than
That's
thrilled
what
that
it
you
is
got
now.
your vote, so it's fine.
Okay,
We'll move on.
move that change.
Okay.
What else we got?
So those were the major changes since the last version of the local law. I guess if we want to just go through each section to see if there's anything that you want to change from previous versions or from this version.
Nope, go through them quick.
Okay, so in the definition section,
Just tell us what page you're on to,
so we're on page 2.
okay?
So there's new definitions for craft workshop, office, motor vehicle dealerships, recreation, restaurants, and theater performing arts. Are there any, does anyone have any comments or recommended changes to any of the definitions?
No.
Section 4 is amendments to Article 2, establishments of districts map.
Page,
This is on
Three.
page 3. So this is where we are proposing a new district that would be Neighborhood Business NB, Gateway Commercial GC, Highway Commercial HC, and Special Route 6 Area District SR6. And the districts that would be removed are NB1 and NB2, GC1 and GC2, HC1, which is really just dropping the 1. And then we're now proposing to keep OP1, OP2, and OP3. Any-
anyone have a problem with that? No. Go ahead.
No, it's kind of, the way it looks, though, I see removed, but with the strike through, it was confusing. But as long as we're all on the same page and we know we're actually adding Office Park OP 1, 2, and 3 back in.
Back in, right.
Right, right, because the way this is worded, it's how you would amend the existing code.
Right.
So it's not being deleted from the code, it's just being deleted from the local law. Amendments to Article 5, non-residential districts, that's the use and dimensional table that's in the back. I don't know if you want to jump to the table, if there's any further comments on that.
Is the table identified with a page number so we're all on the same page?
There is,
Attachment?
yeah, it's 5.1 and 5.2 attachment.
138.51 and 5.2. Seems to be no comment, go ahead.
Okay. Section 6, amendments to Article 9, site plan review and approval.
What page again?
This is
4.
on page 4. This, the first provision would allow the planning board some flexibility in the parking requirements. Some of this is actually already in the code, but it clarifies the referral to the section 138-71. Section 138-46.L, outside storage. This is the section that allows some variation in the permissible amount of outside storage based on the use.
So under light manufacturing, we're bumping that back up to 25%.
Yes.
Yes. Section 7, also on page 4, amendments to Article 10, special permits and conditional uses. The first section amends the procedure for special use permits. The change here is that right now, if a site plan, if an applicant has a site plan and a special permit, and the site plan expires after 1 year, the special permit expires after 18 months. And the planning board will then, if they submit in time, the planning board can issue an extension of final site plan approval. And then within 6 months, they have to go back to the town board or whenever they had gotten their original approval from the town board and get an extension on the special permit as well. This change would say that as long as that there is a valid site plan approval in place, that they wouldn't need to also come back and get the special permit extended. So if they're getting, they would just come back to the town for one extension from one board.
I agree. Anyone else?
I agree.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Section 138-63.8, Special Route 6 Area District. This is the new Special Route 6 district and all of the special permit criteria that would apply to that district, and conditional use permit as well. And every use that's proposed in that district would be either a special permit use or a conditional use permit. So these guidelines would be applicable to everybody. And that's pages 5, 6, 7.
Now, the one thing I'd like to discuss on page 5 in the site access, where new development is proposed next to a vacant land, a stub end street shall be provided to allow for future connection between the properties.
Yes. That was based on a discussion at the last town board meeting,
Yeah.
where,
But they made this proposal up here on Route 22. It's on all the maps. It's never happened, probably never will happen. Why are we doing it again? I understand what
'Cause
the
maybe it
rationale,
can
because
happen.
right now we have, on Route 22 on the left-hand side, there's property now for sale. There were two separate properties, they were combined or bought separately by a person. And we try to get the similar extension road, but the property next door basically denied. What do we do then?
Right, so this is not a specific road and it's not mapped. This is more of allowing the interconnection of parking lots on,
If the two are willing to do that, we can't make it mandatory.
you can require the stub end street when you have the application before you, if it's in.
But what if you need, so say you need it from your neighbor? No?
Can you force them to connect? That's what he's saying. If it's two different property owners.
Well, it would likely be two different property
Well, it would
owners.
be, but they'd be in front, I think the best example would be, on this, would be to use State Line, because it's a big project that's been approved.
Right.
And it's the type of thing, once people are in, if someone then builds something next to State Line, that the planning board says, you know, this is, they can condition it on, you have to connect to State Line, so people don't have to go back out on Route 6, go the other way, cross traffic again.
Okay,
and
but
get
how
back on.
how do you get State Line, if that's the example we're gonna use, how do you make State Line conform to our so-called wishes? Is it in their approval when they get it? And if they didn't get the approval using State Line, they've already been approved,
Right.
and someone goes next door, and this is the new rule, how do you make it work?
Right, so State Line was not approved with a stub end street.
No.
So if State Line came back in for a site plan amendment, which is highly likely since
Yeah.
they got approved without a user, that they would need some sort of an amendment, they would have to provide a stub end street. And if and when somebody comes in to build next to them, that new applicant would be required to also provide a stub end street that connected to state lines. And that way it would help minimize the amount of traffic that would be going out onto Route 6.
I buy the argument, and I understand it wholeheartedly. The only thing is, let's say State Line does not have to come in for any type of amendment to their property, and a new one comes in, and this regulation's in, what happens then? You can't make them do it. They didn't have to come back for a change of site plan.
No, but why wouldn't you have it for all new things?
It's new, you
things.
have to understand.
That's why,
We're
it's-
using-
that's
we're
why it's
using an
worded for
example.
vac-
I'm using
for-
an example of State Line. They've already got all the approvals.
Right.
Let's say they never have to come back to us for another thing, and we want this as the new property owner.
Right, but
Or new
if
development.
they, I mean, it wouldn't be a very good business decision, many would say, to not do it, because
But you
you
have
get
to-
overflow, but fine. But Tony, say State Line, take State Line out of it, and there are two lots next to State Line that are new and are gonna go through
But
the
that's
process, those
different,
two.
that's totally different.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you want it?
You
I don't
would,
know.
I don't have a problem.
Oh, well,
look,
then that's-
what I'm
but that's
trying
all
to
we're
get
talking
to
about.
is, how do you make it if it's on the opposite side of you and you want that to happen? You can't.
Right, you couldn't retroactively tell
Right.
somebody who's already there to put in a stub end street, but we might be able to
Twist their arms.
work with them and.
Well, it
See
is
if they're
unusual
willing
for
to
them
do
not to
that,
come back
but-
in for something.
Okay.
It really is,
Okay.
but so State Line never does it, they don't want to and they don't, but it would help with other projects if they
Right.
go in, that's all.
So it's definitely a good planning practice to do this.
How come we didn't do it before? It
boy.
wasn't that good. Okay, go ahead.
Were there any other recommendations for changes to this section? Uh, On page 10 at the very bottom is the proposed regulations for motor vehicle dealerships.
And we already discussed the metal vehicle display ramps
Right.
on the next one, so that's out.
And then also L was another planning board suggestion, which was to remove L, which was that no more than 10% of the lot area shall be dedicated to used or pre-owned vehicle sales or storage.
That was taken out.
That was taken out at the suggestion of the planning board.
I don't have a problem with that. Anyone else?
I do, but we're not gonna go back there, so.
Section 8 reduces the size of the required parking space from 9 feet wide, from 9.5 feet wide to 9 feet wide, which is fairly typical. The other change that was made to this section is we realized that the the size of the parking space for handicaps was not in conformance with ADA standards. So it's been updated to refer to the ADA standards. That way, in case there are any changes in the future, we're not playing catch-up.
Well, people continue to hit the side of my car constantly, and I'm not in favor of that, believe me. I mean, when you go into some of these parking spaces, they are really too tight. Depending what you have next to you, you have a van, if you have two compact cars, what do they call them? It really becomes a problem, so I'm not really much in favor of reducing the size down.
I'm not either.
What is like the standard, is there a,
9 by 18 is pretty standard. Some towns will go as low as 8. I wouldn't recommend that. But they
Yeah,
can go
motorcycle.
as wide as 9.5 or 10.
10, I think, is a bit much, but 9.5 is a good compromise. But they've reduced it.
But we've already, I believe that the parking area.
The commuter lot was
right.
permitted to go down
Yeah,
to
9,
9, I think.
just so you know,
Well.
It depends on the
you
use.
can
If it's
make-
something like an office building where people are driving in
and just staying.
for the day and staying for the day, then 9 makes a lot of sense. But if it was like at a Costco where people are coming in with big stuff, that's where you might want a wider space.
Yeah.
And this doesn't prohibit somebody from putting in a wider space.
Oh, they're
It's
not
just
going to,
it's
because they're
a-
gonna want more spaces,
Yeah.
and make it difficult to
well,
get
it
in.
depends on what type of.
Okay, what's everyone's pleasure? 9,
I'll
9.5?
go with 9, if that's
I'm
what the
9.5,
standard is.
I'm 9.5.
Edwin?
9, leave it as is.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I'm gonna suggest, you make it 9.5, and they can reduce it to 9, because it's a 2-2 here this evening.
Okay, well, if you wanted, 9.5 would be keeping it as is.
Okay,
So that would be no change to the code there.
Okay.
and just remember that when you guys are doing it, that you wanna reduce it to 9. And it's the fairest way to
We don't
do
know
it.
what Liz is gonna.
Yeah, we don't
Right.
know.
So it actually, if you,
So we leave it, and this change can be made the night it's voted on.
right, so leave it as drafted and
Right.
then we can
Because we
choose-
can't go
choose
up,
not
but we
to
can
do
go
that.
down. Good.
Okay. The next section is
Bless you.
Bless you.
also modifications to the parking standards. This is another area where it was updated to have better references between the sections that are applicable.
Okay.
Ashley, on the Americans with Disabilities Act, will that be retroactive for projects that have been approved? Or will, I mean, since they're, or not?
It would apply to anyone who was going to pull a building permit. So that is something that
Okay.
was already being probably checked at the building permit level.
Okay,
It just
so
wasn't.
anything that's approved but not built will have to comply
Yeah.
with ADA? Okay.
The next section, section 9, amendments to Article 17, outdoor lighting. So this is a section that was significantly updated from what's in the code today to be more restrictive and more protective of the dark sky. There were some minor edits to this section. The New York State Banking Department was updated to financial services. And the horizontal foot candles on site is now proposed to be a minimum of 0. So you could go as low as 0 as opposed to 0.9. And that is it for the substantive changes.
She's done.
Done?
Yes.
Okay. I believe we've made changes. We've been doing it now for at least a year and a half, or at least a year, I know. So I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing and give a 10-day written
Don't we want to
notice.
hear from the public, see if anyone in the public wants to?
We had the public initially. Anyone else from the public?
Now that we've gone through it, they might have something.
We opened it up to them, and then we did ours.
No, I know, but
Okay. So 10-day, so we'll close the public hearing and open it for a 10-day public comment in writing.
yes, because we have made changes, so.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Now, Ashley, can you get that to us tomorrow? So we
Yes.
post it on the web immediately?
Yes.
Thank you. There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, make a motion to open a work session, discussion of Town of Southeast Emergency Response Plan. I want to thank both Lori Bell and Lynn for the time and effort they put into this. I reviewed it, I made my comments, everyone had an opportunity to make their comments, and I see what we have in front of us this evening is basically the draft that I'd like to move forward for the next meeting for approval by the town board.
Yeah, I was fine with that.
The only thing is to be determined at 1360. I will talk to Ms. Bell since she was the author, partial author of it. I'm going to ask her if she'd like to put her name in that spot and move it forward. If she does not, we can always pass it with to be determined, and it can be whomever we assign at some point down in the future.
How many of our employees are CPR trained now?
I don't know.
I don't think there's that many, so that's
No,
something we'll have to
Kenny,
work
a
on.
few others, so.
I don't think anyone in
No,
this
no one
building.
here. I don't-
Nobody in this building.
No one in this building?
Yeah, so that's something we should do.
And we have the defibrillator here, so he has to do a training class with that.
Okay, well, we've done that in the past here at the town hall. Kenny's given that class,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's not a big thing, but
No.
it's
Okay, so we'll put this on for the next meeting?
fun.
Okay. Next, I'll make a motion to open up the regular meeting portion. Number one is a resolution for the MS4 annual report. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of Town Southeast hereby adopts the 2015 MS4, that should be MS4, just as MS, put the 4 there, annual report prepared on the town's behalf and hereby authorizes such document be filed with the appropriate authorities and may be required by law. I'm looking for a second with the amendment.
I'll second.
With the amendment. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Number two, resolution Holly Stream Condominiums Petition Transportation Corporation. Now therefore be resolved. Do you want to speak to this before I read this, sir? Okay. Now therefore be resolved that before we were going to read this, normally we do not allow public comment on whatever, but since you're here tonight, I'll waive the rules to allow the exception. Have you,
There's nothing to say.
I'm not here to make any public comment. Once your board adopts the resolution, I propose to thank you.
we never get that. We like that. Okay.
That's limitation.
Okay. Now therefore be resolved that due to consideration of petition arguments for and against the establishment of a sewer works corporation under the Transportation Corporation Law of the State of New York, it is found to determine that there is no compelling reason for the establishment of a transportation corporation in this instance. As all persons and properties served are serviced by existing facilities are members of the entity which currently owns and operates the existing system. The funds used for the maintenance and upkeep of the facilities are raised through common charges paid by the condominium unit owners who are members of the condominium association and from outside grants. No services are provided outside of the confines of the condominium association property. No pipes, ducts, or conveyances are laid in public right-of-way, and the town board does not feel it is in the best interest of the town at large to be involved in the rate-making or rate-setting for sewage services as anticipated under the New York State Transportation Corporation Law, and therefore the petition of Holly Stream Condominiums verified April 25, 2015, seeking the establishment of a sewer works corporation pursuant to New York State Transportation Corporation Law is hereby denied. So moved.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for considering our petition. We plan to make application for a waiver of this requirement to the DEC. If there's any problem, you can be sure that we'll be back to you. Thanks
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, resolution number 3, chapter 96, noise. Now therefore be resolved that the town board of the town of Southeast hereby adopts local law, number to be assigned at the end of this meeting pursuant to municipal home rule, to amend chapter 96 of town code, noise, and be further resolved that the town clerk be hereby is authorized and directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and in the code book of the town of Southeast, and B, give due notice of the adoption of said local law by filing such with the Secretary of State within the time required by law. So move for discussion.
It's local number 5, by the way.
Number 5?
Second.
All in favor?
I'm gonna vote no on this. I just had some issues with the Sundays. I'd like to see a little bit more restrictions to protect the neighbors for quality of life on Mother's Day, Father's Day, and Easter. So I'll be a no vote.
Although, all those holidays fall on Sundays, right? So they'd be covered. I think that's one reason we didn't put it in, I thought. No?
Yeah, I think, Bob, we just,
We didn't put those
We
in
didn't
because
put
they're,
'em-
but they would have to follow the Sunday rules.
Right,
Because
but
they're all
I don't
on
think on
Sunday.
those days there should be any work.
Oh,
on Sunday.
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
you don't do any work on Sundays.
I know, I try not to.
Okay, one no. All the others in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, it's passed 3-1. Resolution number 4, Chapter 108, rental housing registration of, and Chapter 13822, accessory apartments. Resolved that the town board of the town of Southeast hereby adopts local law number 6 of 2015 pursuant to municipal home rule to amend Chapter 108 rental housing registration of and Chapter 138 zoning, Section 13822 accessory apartments relating to keeping of rental accommodations in single-family residence properties, and be further resolved that the town clerk be and hereby is authorized and directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and in the code book of the town of Southeast, and B, give notice of the adoption of said local law by filing such with the Secretary of State with New York within the time required by law. So move for discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5, resolution to amend the town Southeast fee schedule to reflect changes made to Chapter 108 rental housing registration and Chapter 13822 accessory apartments. Resolved that the town clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to publish the amended fee schedule on the town's website, and B, circulate such amended fees schedule to all affected town departments. So move for discussion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 6, resolution, ARB recommendation, Peaceful Hill Water District. Now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby accepts and approves the report of the Architectural Review Board dated May 28, 2018, a copy which is annexed hereto and made part hereof in connection with Peaceful Hill Water District water supply and treatment facility, and that such report shall be incorporated in any final site plan subsequently reviewed by the planning board of the town of Southeast Town Board. So move for discussion.
I'll second for discussion.
Would you like to come up and identify what is happening there now, please?
My name's Elizabeth Frederick. I'm with the Chazen Companies. I'm here tonight to talk about Peaceful Hill Water District. It's a proposed project to provide water treatment and water storage for the residents.
Please? Oh, okay.
It's a project to provide water treatment and water storage for the residents of Peaceful Hill. It is to provide a cheaper water source than they're currently using. And it is a 560 square foot treatment facility and a 200,000 gallon partially buried storage tank.
Now, one of the bigger concerns I know with some of the neighbors was the coloration of that. How was that worked out with the ARB?
So the ARB suggested a darker gray, so it's silver by the DN tank manufacturer. I can show you the flyer for that.
Could you do that, please? It's not the color that's shown on the plan, right?
It is not.
Because if you put that on the plan, we wouldn't see it, right?
So it's the silver color.
Okay. It's the dark.
Just kind of a dark gray.
Thank you.
The concern was.
Now, in case someone from the audience wants to come up, you would like to come up here?
And see
Have you seen it? Did you go to the ARB meeting at all? Okay, well, if not, you can just take this and give it back to Ms. Fredericks when you're done. It's the silver color. You can take it back in the audience, anyone, so. Mr. Berman, how are you? Good to see you. Okay.
What was suggested by the ARB and what we agreed with was and what we proposed was that the concern was seeing this tank, right? So the screening, providing trees and vegetation that would naturally screen the tank and the storage, and the treatment facility. So our proposal said that we would put the screening in after the tank and the treatment facility were in, so that we could properly screen what's there. And it made more sense to do that after the fact. So that's one of the stipulations.
Which makes a lot of sense, because you can put on a piece of paper, you have 102 trees, not one of them's gonna block the view. So once it's done, the plan is to put a berm in, plant trees accordingly, to screen it as best as possible from any of the neighbors.
Right, and the ARB will have a chance to have input on the landscape that's chosen. We're going to include a allowance item to cover a certain cost for landscaping.
In all honesty, I think any of the ARB or planning board recommendations should have that caveat in there, because to put it on a plan, it looks good on paper, and then when you actually plant the trees, it doesn't work. So that's a good move.
And I'd also like to comment on the dark gray, because it seems counterintuitive. This time of year, everyone thinks green, but we've had problems with some tanks in town that are green and then in the winter really stand out. Also, a good example of this is at Powers Fasteners. That's dark gray, and it's one of our biggest buildings, and it really has blended into the landscape much better with the gray and navy. So I'd like to thank the ARB. I think that was a really good choice.
I agree.
And the green you're speaking of is not green, that's lime.
Lime green.
That's
I
not
know,
gr- that's not green.
but any of the green, it just seems this time of year, like, why didn't they pick green? But it usually doesn't work out well. So,
Yeah, yeah, we got those cheap.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
questions?
yeah.
Can I ask a question after it's done?
We'll make a motion to allow such. Yes, could you just come up this way so everyone can hear if you don't mind, please? This is Mr. Berman, just tell me.
I'm sorry to take a couple of minutes just to rewind or remind ourselves what was the last time that we discussed that. There was the gentleman that has the property next to this, to the tank, and he opposed objection to erecting this water tank there. So there were several, when Lavan was here, there were several options that were supposed to be, I would say, evaluated by Lavan. And one was the original plan to have 4 tanks made of fiberglass and buried in the ground. And the second opinion was if we can bury the whole thing down in the ground. And there were all kind of, I would say, concerns about it, how the water is spread when the diameter of this tank is much larger than the height of it. That was one thing that Lavan promised to check and come back to with an answer, return with an answer. And then the question is the gentleman that suggested that or that objected to this plan, is he okay with the solution that you are suggesting now?
Okay, well, one thing, Mr. Berman, what we're discussing tonight is just basically the ARB recommendation.
I understand.
You're asking for things that should have been done.
Maybe she doesn't know the answer.
No,
But
but that's done during the planning board stage. Can you answer that? Go ahead. Mr. Berman, wait there in case you have to ask a follow-up.
What was discussed during the planning board, and I'll address just the comments that you brought up, which was discussed at that planning board meeting as well as the subsequent one. So the first one was going back to the original plan of the 4 fiberglass tanks. The reason that we switched away from that was because it was more expensive. It had a more complicated system. It required more piping, more valves, and concerns about being able to manage the water flow to not have stagnation was the concern. So that was the reason we started to look at this type of storage tank. The reason we are not fully burying the storage tank is because of the groundwater the groundwater level. If we completely bury the tank, it goes into the water table, and so the construction costs of digging a hole that deep and then, pumping out the water so that you can construct the concrete tank become very, it's excessive, but it's also an unknown. It could, it's beyond, we don't know how much pumping it's gonna take to pump out that hole. So that's the reason we went with the partially buried tank. I know it was something that
We're supposed to change.
discussed, but also the natural landscape of the site, it slopes down, so the tank is kind of naturally screened by the landscape, right? If you're standing at the road and you're looking out, you're only getting about 8 feet of the tank anyway. So the idea was if we provide screening after the fact, we'll have a better sense of being able to put screening trees here and hopefully really screen a very large portion of the tank.
And one last, maybe I would like Tony and the board to see one last question that was asked. If we can expand this and lower the height of the whole structure, and there were concerns, the voice that it might not be good again for keeping the water spread around on a very large diameter. I don't know if it's possible at all to lower it further.
So I talked to the representative about, for the tank manufacturer, what was feasible, and it does increase the cost. The top of the tank has to become a much stronger structure in order to be able to expand further. So it added cost, and as you know, this is all, the whole project is driven on providing a more cost-effective water source. So that is why we stayed with this tank.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Don't you have someone?
Come up to the mic, please. This is unusual. We try not to do this. And I'm going to get shot after the meeting for allowing it.
Just, no, this is just a statement, and you, just so that they're aware, you had said
Just
you
come
were
up
gonna
with
look
it.
into more mature trees in front of it to block the neighbor's view instead of saplings.
Yes, that'll be addressed after it's construction. If they
Okay.
need an 8-foot tree, 10-foot tree, that's what they'll plant. There's no
Probably
sense,
even higher, but,
well, whatever it may be.
It'll be dictated by money as well.
right, but if you spread the cost over 144 people, it's not that big of a cost. And also, I thought you were gonna look into putting something on top of it, grass or type thing.
Yeah, so we did some research into that, and our understanding is that it is really hard to get DOH approval, having sort of a green roof on top of a tank like this. It's just not common, and could cause quite a large hiccup in trying to get the project approved. You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments further from the board?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Don't
you.
forget your- Sure.
Number 7, resolution home rule request for Spring House. This is being withdrawn this evening. We may have to have a special meeting. Basically, the state came back, actually, the state assembly came back today, and I had to try to explain to Assemblyman Katz's office, because it's the assembly that shot this down and not the Senate. Basically, what they want is a reduced amount of time to pay this off. And they don't realize that the homeowners there are now, I mean, we're talking, and unfortunately they're leaving, but Spring House Estates bill is $3,400 a year. Now, as you know, there was approximately $300,000 and change that was not allowed to be rolled in. Mr. Berman, we're discussing Spring House Estates this right now and about the cost. They had around $380,000 thereabouts of additional costs from the previous modifications made. And the state basically came back and said they don't want, and Will also told me they don't usually allow 30-year financing. So they wanted to reduce it. They came back and wanted to reduce it down to 5. Well, I'm telling you right now, if they bring it down to 5, then the cost to the homeowners is going to rise that much more. So we sent back today requesting a 20-year instead of a 30, because that falls more within the normal limits. But if they reduce it down to 5, it's gonna be really a handicap to those residents. So we're doing everything we can to keep their costs down, because it was really exorbitant what they have to pay and are paying. So, you know, we're doing the best we can, but now the assemblies come back, and we try to explain to them why we have to do what we're doing. I mean, I understand theirs, well, you know, why do you want to spread this over a period of time to lower their costs? Because at $3,400 a year for the water that they're paying, if they reduce it down to 5, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's substantial.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was approximately, I think it was like $100 a month more, and that's,
Wow.
it's, no, that's the wrong one. Take that back. That was the other thing I discussed earlier.
Okay.
Okay, it was not 100, but it's a lot more money. So if you do it over 5 years, 10 years, 15, the longer the period of time, the less that the homeowners have to pay. And at $3,400, every penny does count.
Is the interest rate the same, 30 years, 5 years?
It'll be adjustable accordingly, and that you can't predict. But we have to do this to get the cost spread out over a period of time. I wouldn't say regardless of the interest rate. All I know is that the state agency would not allow this to be rolled in, so we can't get the rates that we got on the plant itself. But they'll have to pay basically the going rate, which, you know, we'll go out into the open market and get the best we can. Our credit rating is much better now. We'll get a low borrowing rate, but, you know, it can't be predicted. So, I'm gonna just
Sure.
withdraw this from the agenda this evening, but prepared maybe to have a special meeting if we get
Okay.
the necessary, because I think, how much more time do they have up there, a little week or so?
They're probably done by the end of the month.
Yeah.
I would say the last week of June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we'll squeeze it in.
Yeah, depending, again, if they come back and they give us a time frame, if it doesn't coincide with our next meeting, we'll have to have a special meeting. Okay?
Yep.
So that's withdrawn. Number 8, I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for the Drewville Mobile Mart to discuss their special permit. And that will be for our next meeting, which is the 18th of June, which is a Thursday. So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, number 9 is a resolution certiorari settlement for Niche Mat Corporation. Let's see.
Yeah.
I do it, okay. Resolved that the Town Board of Town Southeast does hereby accept the recommendations of the professional advisors and authorize the town attorney to execute a stipulation of settlement, consent, judgment, and/or order of consent in accordance with recommendations of the following. Petitioner, Niche Mat Corp., N-I-C-H-M-A-T-T Corp., tax ID 69.13-1-20, year 2012, assessment was $620, reduced to $550. Same company, tax map number 69.13-1-20.1, year 2013, $540, reduced to $430, and in 2014, $540, reduced to $459. And be further resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized and directed to execute any and all stipulations, consent orders, and other documents necessary to reflect the foregoing settlements. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Number 10, resolution certiorari settlement, Shear Ray Corporation. Petitioner, okay, resolved that the Town Board of Town of Southeast does hereby accept the recommendations of the professional advisors and authorize the town attorney to execute a stipulation of settlement, consent, judgment, and/or order on consent in accordance with said recommendations for the following. Petitioner, Shearer Re Corp., C-H-E-I-R-A, capital R-E Corp., tax ID 56.18-1-3, year 2012, assessment 873, settled 680. 2013, assessment 873, settled assessment 675. Year 2014, assessment 873, reduced to $700,000. And be further resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized and directed to execute any and all stipulations, consent orders, or other documents necessary to reflect the foregoing settlements. So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Recognition of the public. Recognition of the town board. I'd like to thank Lori for last number 9 and 10. And other than that, I'm done. Anyone else?
Flag Day comes before our next meeting.
Yes, June 14th. At the Elks.
At the Elks.
6 o'clock.
So say it out loud.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
The Elks has a ceremony on Flag Day every year, June 14th, which is a Sunday this year. I believe it's 6 o'clock. It's open to the public. It's a very nice little patriotic ceremony. They have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts there, and have the history of the flags, and free hot dogs and soda after. So if anyone wants to come.
Is that fast food or?
I don't know. There's
No
no
dri- no
there's no
drive-through.
waitresses, I
No.
think, and it's a paper front plate, so.
They close in the 84
Oh,
Do you have
yeah, this weekend, starting Friday night, I believe at 11 o'clock, the ramp from, or maybe it's 9 o'clock, the ramp from 84, if you're coming north on 684, the ramp to go to 84 eastbound into Danbury will be closed for, overnight, Friday into Saturday. I think it opens up hopefully Saturday morning at 11, and they're trying to straighten that out. There's a lot of trucks that roll over and crash on that. They hit the bend too quickly, so hopefully it will work, and Brewster Fire Department won't be out there all the time, which unfortunately they are.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we close tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.